Good morning, I'm Meg from Ninnescah Homestead. We're getting ready to milk the cows so we can make some cheddar cheese this morning, and I'm going to take you along with me. The cheddar cheese recipe that I'm going to use today is like the most beginner friendly recipe ever, and you do not have to have raw milk to do this. You can use store-bought pasteurized milk and it will be just fine. So I have 2 cows over here, Spice and Rosie, that we're going to milk, and then 1 calf which is separated right here. If I don't separate the calf from its mom, it will take all of the milk. So on the nights that I want to milk the mama, I separate the baby and they get 12 hours apart. So what you're going to see now is I am going to let the cows in one at a time. They're going to hop into the stanchion right here. Now I've got you propped up against a pumpkin sitting on a fence post, so I think we're good to go. Pardon the noise, I know that these motors are really loud from the vacuum pump that's milking my cow right now. But what's happening is her udder is getting empty from the suction of the pump, just like a breast pump for a human woman. The reservoirs are these 2 metal tanks right here. This is Spice. She gives me about 2.5 gallons a day. She had a calf over a year ago. She is still lactating, she's still producing milk, but her calf has been gone for 2 months now. So one of the questions that I get a lot is, how do you keep your cow lactating and producing milk when they don't have a calf with them anymore? Spice here gave birth a year ago in June, so she is like almost 16 months or so into this lactation. She's still producing about 2.5 gallons of milk for me every day because I keep milking her. So it's just like a human mom. As long as you are using a pump of some sort, even if you're not actually physically feeding your baby, your body will continue to produce. Ladies are finishing up their snack. They are free to go back to the pasture when they're finished, and we're gonna go process this milk and make some cheddar. We're finished milking, we're back up at the house. I have washed my hands and sterilized all of my equipment, and I'm just gonna go through it with you really quick so that you can kind of get an idea of what you need if you wanna start making cheese. The first thing you're gonna need is a big pot. I'm using a 4-gallon stock pot, stainless steel, has nice strong handles because milk is heavy. And you're gonna wanna have this pot pretty much dedicated to cheese making because cheese can be very finicky, and any residue or anything that gets in that pot, it is possible to sterilize stainless steel, but it's kind of hard. So I just have set equipment that is only for cheese making. The other thing that you're gonna need is something like this for stirring your milk. When you stir your milk for cheese making, it's like a very slow up and down motion where you're like pulling the milk that's at the bottom of the pot up to the top. I really like something like this. It's stainless steel, really nice. I also have dedicated little measuring spoons for milk. These are so cute. The measurements are like a smidgen, a drop, a dash, a pinch, but what they are is like 1/8, 1/32, 1/64. They are teeny tiny little measuring spoons because when you add your culture, it really doesn't take much culture. And the cultures that I'm using today, this is the Milkman, and I really like this cheddar culture. Very easy to use. It's very foolproof. I haven't had any issues with my cheese turning out. I've had 100% success rate using this culture. You're also going to need an ingredient called rennet. I prefer to use veal calf rennet because this is actually a true made by nature product. When you buy cheese now, it's really unfortunate, but most of the rennet that cheesemakers use, like store brands like Walmart, Kroger, they are using a GMO rennet now, which is really disappointing. So if you use veal calf rennet, you know it's the real thing. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you can get a vegetable-based rennet, but that's just kind of a personal preference thing. If you're using pasteurized milk, like you're using milk from the grocery store, you're going to need an extra ingredient called calcium chloride. Whenever you heat milk, the protein gets denatured and you want it to be able to coagulate and stick back together, so that's where this is going to come in. We're using raw milk, so I don't need this today. If you want your cheddar cheese or your cheese curds to have a orange color, you're going to need an ingredient called annatto. This is made by crushed seeds from the achiote tree. I don't know how to say it, A-C-H-I-O-T-E. It's a tree. So this is a seed based. It is not like red 40 or an artificial dye. People are gonna give you trouble if they see your cheese orange on the internet, but just ignore them because if you like it, you can do whatever you want. If you wanna make a marbled cheddar, you're gonna take half of your milk in one pot, half of your milk in another pot, color half of it, and then bring them back together after the curds are ready to be mixed. Now, because I'm using raw milk, we are going to pour it through a funnel. This is a special milk filter to catch any debris that will be in here. I'll show you at the end. This is going to be completely clean because my milk is clean. One of the questions that always inevitably pops up in the comment section whenever I'm talking about making cheeses with raw milk, people are always like, how do you clean your milk before you make cheese? You don't clean milk. Milk is not inherently dirty. If you have a healthy cow and good sanitation procedures, there is nothing to clean out of the milk. Now, we still run it through a filter. The filter will catch any debris that might be in there. It'll be empty at the end. I'm going to show you it's always empty. So we are going to pour the milk through the filter. Come down here. There you are. I accidentally overfilled my milk canister this morning because I just kept thinking she was done and she wasn't. And I just kept going. So this might make a mess. Now we're going to add our starter culture to the milk and we are just going to sprinkle it on top. This recipe is for 2 gallons of milk. Today I'm using 3 gallons of milk. So the recipe is for 1/8 teaspoon of this freeze-dried starter culture. So I'm going to use 1/8 plus 1/16. It's teeny tiny. Okay, come down here again. Now for the next few minutes, we're just gonna let this sit on top of the milk and it's going to rehydrate. After that, we are going to stir it in and then we're gonna set a timer. So meanwhile, I need to filter my other milk so that we have some milk to drink this week. Now remember how I told you that this filter is going to be completely clean because milk is not a dirty substance, and no matter what people tell you, it doesn't have hair and poop in it. Crystal clean. Now we're going to stir this culture in using an up-down motion. So we're going to go down to the bottom of the pot, bring it back up. We want to keep the surface tension on top as stable as possible. Now that we've got our culture stirred in, we have a 45-minute break. So I set a timer and I'm gonna run out and really fast finish all the other chores, wash my milking machine, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna add the rennet and continue on with the process. If you have any questions so far, drop them in the comments. It's been 45 minutes and now we're back and I'm going to add my liquid veal rennet. You can also choose a vegetarian rennet if you would prefer, and we're just going to dilute this in warm water. Give it a good stir, and then as we pour this over the top of the milk, we are going to stir it in gently using an up and down motion. It's almost like we're pulling the milk from the bottom of the pot up to the top, and we're just going to repeat this several times. They say to go a little over a minute. I usually do probably 20 up-down strokes. While our cheese curds are setting up, I thought it would be a really good time to show you my cheese press. If you're going to make cheese curds, you don't need this, but if you're wanting to make an actual wheel of cheese, these are going to be pretty important. This is called a Dutch press, and there are tons of cheese presses that you can buy. This is definitely not the only one. I like this because it has a lever system and it uses these 7-pound bags of water to apply a really even pressure over that wheel of cheese and get everything nice and level. There are notches on here. I don't know if you can see them, but one is 3, 4, and 4.5. So when you hang one bag that's 7 pounds of water on the 3, you're putting 21 pounds of pressure on your cheese. And then if you hang both bags of 7 pounds of water, 42 pounds of pressure on the cheese, and so on and so forth. It's very, very handy. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the cheese mold. This is a cheese mold, and it gives your cheese that classic wheel shape, and it has little drainage holes that allows the whey to drip out. You can get molds in all different sizes. This size is an extra large. Most of my wheels of cheese are between 2 and 4 gallons of milk. And so this is a perfect size for me. You can get smaller ones, you can get bigger ones, depending on what your needs are. This is the lid that goes with your cheese press, and there are reservoirs on top so you can add hot water. This is really helpful if your kitchen's cold and you're having a hard time getting your cheese curds to knit together. They all want to be nice and warm so that they can kind of blend. This is a cheesecloth. I buy the nicer ones that come in a 3-pack. They have a hemmed edge. They're also a little bit sheer, but you can still see that there's enough of a weave where liquids like whey can get through it, but it's not something that's going to like leave a knit look on your cheese, if that makes sense. Some of the cheaper cheesecloths, like you can actually see the crosshatch of the fibers. I like these so much better. This is what you put your cheese curds in, and then you place this into the mold, and then you apply pressure, it becomes a wheel, and then you take it out and it slips out nice and easy because you've got this cloth as a barrier in between the cheese mold and the cheese curds. And then you flip your cheese over, you redress it with the cloth, and then you put it back in, and then you just keep doing that until your cheese is fully pressed. The rennet's done its job and our cheese is set, so now it's time to cut the curds. I'm using this curd cutter, but you could easily use a knife. After these have cut, we're going to let them heal for 10 minutes without touching them. And then very slowly over the next 30 minutes, we're going to gently warm them to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I usually set a timer to check it and stir it every 5 minutes. And once you hit that 100-degree temperature, we're going to take it off the stove and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes before draining off the whey. This whey is such a cool liquid. I recommend capturing it with a bowl underneath the strainer. That way you can either make whey caramel, ricotta, or even use it in your bread recipes in place of water. Drain the curds into a colander that's lined with a cheesecloth and let it rest for about 20 minutes. Once most of this whey has drained, we're going to tie the curds or fold the cloth over them, and then we're going to flip them over in the colander and drain them for another 20 minutes. Once most of the whey has drained from the curds, we're going to start a process called slabbing. This is the actual cheddaring process of making cheddar cheese, where we take the cheddar and we let it press against itself. Because my colander is long and narrow, I feel like this can be an awkward mass to handle, so I generally cut mine in half and then slab them on top of each other so that I have more of a square shape instead of a rectangle. And now we're just going to flip this stack every 20 minutes for about 2 hours. The texture is going to change as you go. The curds are going to get firmer, they're going to get smoother, they'll feel a little bit more elastic even. And once the cheddaring process is done, we are going to cut the curds into pieces. Before we get to that though, I want to show you kind of what these look like. Here's how they are in the beginning. You can see a lot of definition where these were stacked on top of each other. It does not look like one cohesive unit yet. And after our session of cheddaring, everything looks like it's almost melted together, and it kind of sticks together too when I move it. And this last 20-minute flip really did the trick, and here's how it looks now. In my opinion, this is the most fun part of all of the cheese making process. We're going to take our cheese curds that have been slabbed, and we are going to put them back into the pot where they originally were made in. And then this is where we cut them into curds, add the salt, and if you want to add any inclusions, you can. Dried peppers, dried cranberries. I've made wheels that are like dill pickle flavored with dill and garlic. You can just get as creative as you want with this. So that's what we're going to do next. If you don't want to make a wheel of cheddar cheese and you would rather just make cheddar cheese curds, what you're going to do next is you're going to take this slab of curds and you're going to cut it into pieces. Usually 1/2 inch to 2 inch is a perfect size. Once you've salted your cheese curds, they are ready to eat. This is what is known as squeaky cheese curds, or you can go ahead and salt the curds and press them to make a wheel of cheddar cheese, which is what I'm going to show you next. So that was how you make cheese curds, but now we're actually going to make a pressed wheel of cheese. So take your curds, we have not cut these, we have not salted these are just straight out of the strainer. I'm going to use a pastry cutter to cut them into small pieces. Shoot for about 1/2 inch. Some people will say pea-sized, other people will say 2 inch. I really feel like 1/2 inch gives you the perfect size for them to knit together once they get into the press. Adding salt is an important part of the cheddar cheese process. You can add as little as 1 tablespoon of kosher cheese salt per 2 gallons of milk used in the recipe, or you can add 2 tablespoons to have a little bit more of a saltier flavor. Using your hands, you're going to toss these curds to coat them evenly with the salt, and then we're going to prepare our cheese mold. Take that same damp cheesecloth that you were using when you were straining your curds, and you're going to place it inside the mold. Pack the salted cheese curds in as evenly as you can. Try to avoid any air pockets or empty spaces. I usually use my fingers to kind of press everything down, and this is what it looks like when I do it. For the first press, we are going to press at 10 pounds of pressure for 10 minutes. Then we're going to take it out, rewrap it, and press it again at 20 pounds for 1 hour. Then after that, we're going to flip it, rewrap it, and press it at 50 pounds for 12 hours. You'll know that your cheddar's ready to be dried when everything looks like it's one solid piece of cheddar cheese. You don't want to see individual cheese curds. You want everything to just be nice and smooth. Now here we are the next morning, the cheese pressed overnight, and it should be finished. We're going to take a look at it. You're going to see some liquid pour off of the lid right here. This is because I added warm water to the reservoir on top of the lid before I went to bed. Sometimes that added warmth can really help the cheese curds to knit together. What I'm looking for when I unwrap it is I want everything to be nice and smooth. If I feel like I'm still seeing a lot of individual cheese curds, or if I feel like the wrap pressed into it, I'll give it a final press without the cheesecloth, making sure to have the bumpiest part facing up against the press. So we're going to do this at about 20 pounds of pressure for maybe an hour, and then I'm going to come back and check it out. It's looking so much better now, and I'm happy with it. So it's time to do the aging and the storage. Once your cheese comes out of the mat, you are going to need to let it air dry for 2 to 5 days. What this looks like is you are going to take something like a bamboo mat. You could also use a wire rack, but I don't recommend that anymore because if you use a wire rack, they are going to cause a little bit of rust, which is going to leave an impression and kind of an unpleasant discoloration on your wheel. So stick with the bamboo if you're able to. Now let's just admire this really quick before we start the air drying process. I think that 3 days is kind of the perfect amount of air drying to get that natural rind. Some home cheesemakers might say it's ready when it feels like a clammy handshake, but honestly, I feel like that's pretty subjective. Here's what ours looks like after 3 days. You can tell that it has different colors in it. This is because the cream from my cows is grass-fed, and the grass is really green at the time of making this, which means that their cream is very golden, almost to the point of being yellow. It feels pretty much dry to the touch. There's still a little bit of dampness, But we can now either apply a cheese wax or we can vacuum seal it and age it in either a cheese cave or a refrigerator. The ideal way to age cheddar cheese is in a cave at 55 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 degrees Celsius, but I generally like to vacuum seal mine and then just age them in my refrigerator. It was kind of hard to find big enough vacuum bags for these, but I did find them at a place called Walton's Inc. online. And we are just going to seal these up and we are going to stick them in the refrigerator at 38 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 to 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, you can taste test your wheel. You could even eat your cheese wheel if you wanted to. But for the most ideal flavor, you want to let it age for 3 months or more. Some of my cheese wheels in the fridge are over 12 months. I even have some that are 18 months. So I'm going to seal this wheel up and I'm going to stick it in the refrigerator with my other cheese wheels. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and I will respond to them. Now hit the bell to subscribe to my channel. I do cheese making videos, home dairy videos, some recipes here and there. And all of my cheese making recipes can be found on my website, ninnescahmade.com. Let me know what you think.